Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Way of El Marco. I'm your host, Marco Antonio Alvarez, and this is episode number 13, lucky number 13. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah. This week, I have a very special guest. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mohammed Nasser. Thank you very much for being here, buddy.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, my man.
Yeah, man. So we were having a really excellent warm-up conversation right before I pressed the record button. Um, and I want to start off things with a post that you put the other day on Facebook, where I don't remember the name of the concept you brought up, but for lack of a better term, and I'm sure you'll bring it up,
hmm
the Islamic concept of preordination in life and how that was tied into sales. Um, to give people a little bit of background, you and I know each other from the sales space. We met in Bill Walsh's objection box last year, and we've been friends online ever since. So, with that
Yep.
being said, can you elaborate more on that concept, please?
Yeah. So in Arabic, so that concept is called al-qadar, right? And that pretty much means predestiny. Everything that happened was supposed to happen. Right
Mm,
now, how I don't know,
hmm.
right? Because that's beyond my knowledge. God is the most all wise, all knowledgeable. I can't understand how that happens. However, I know that everything that happened was supposed to happen, and there's a certain freedom of that when you apply that, not just in your regular life, but also just like in a more specific situation like sales calls. Because think about it: if everything that happened was supposed to happen, are you going to start looking at things more negatively or positively? Most of it,
Right.
positively. You're like, okay, this was supposed to happen. There's something I can learn from this. There's
Hmm.
a reason why this is happening to me at this very moment, right? So let's just say if a prospect you dealt with real estate agents before. I never dealt with.
Yeah.
You get like this real estate agent that's a complete douche, right? Thinking that they own the call, they own. You get the point, right? Very type A personalities,
Yes.
and then they just absolutely wreck you, and you're just like left with no energy for your next calls. That was supposed to happen.
Mm.
That was and what does the optimist think? The person, at least from the Muslim perspective, right? The believer says, okay, this was supposed to happen. What can I learn from this? That person was there to increase to make my skin thicker.
Mhm.
That person was there to show me that there are weak spots in my sales process that allow for that type of behavior. Now I know what to work on.
Yeah. 100%.
Most people don't think about it that way. They
Yeah.
get off the call, they're like, freaking douche, man.
Yeah.
They start questioning their sales abilities, blah blah blah. When you start to take things, when you start to look at things this way, you're just happy when no matter what happens, you're like, frick. Obviously, sometimes, let's be honest, especially if we're dealing with a type A type of person for the first time, first couple of times, we get really nervous. You know
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say? We start sweating, and like you're still gonna experience that, but you're still gonna remember, oh frick, this was supposed to happen.
Right.
And there's a certain type of freedom that comes with that. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I think it's a lovely concept. I think it's a lovely um, thing to apply to one's mindset because it reminds me a lot of, we were speaking about Jocko earlier, his
Yeah.
concept of good, right? When he talks
Mhm.
about, oh, this thing happened that wasn't the best, good, because now it's going to make you better. Oh, you didn't get that funding for this project, good. Now you're going to figure out how to make it happen without it, right? So it's always it's a reframe, right? It's a
100%.
reframe of reality because and the thing is this, it's like, it's that whole idea that, you can either be the hero or the victim of the story. And which one are you going to be? And so by accepting that, hey, this is how it was supposed to be, cool. Let's keep going, right?
100%. I'd also like to add one thing too
Yeah,
to this
please.
whole perspective. So everything that happened was supposed to happen. But anything that you perceive as bad that happened to you, because we don't believe that Allah, we don't believe that Allah is an oppressor, right?
Mm,
Everything that happens to us, even if it's bad, even if it's the smallest thing, right, is it was a result of our sins. So anything like so like you hear like some of the old Muslims of the past whenever they were in the woods and they got like stung by like is it stung the word stung by a thorn or picked by a thorn,
Mhm.
whatever the word is, the verb for that is, right? They used to ask for forgiveness because they believed that that was a punishment for their sin, for a little sin they might have done,
Oh wow.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for even for the littlest things, it always go back to self accountability. For it. So literally, even now, even for like the smallest things, you ever bang your hand against the door and it
Sure.
just freaking hurts, like or against what's it called, the funny bone?
Oh yeah.
Bone,
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
I'll be like, well, the past me would have been like, oh frick, I get mad, I start, yelling at my sister, start stupid stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now it's just like I wanna complain to the world, but then I kind of I turn back. I say, okay, this is a punishment for my sins. I deserve this. Let's see what I can work on. It's a very, especially to the person that isn't very religious, it's a very, in their perspective, extreme form of self accountability. But I don't believe in extreme self accountability because if you always bring it back to yourself, you're just gonna find peace, man. Because if you're waiting for everybody else, the other factors to change, your environment to change before you do, you'll be waiting forever, man.
You're gonna be waiting forever. It's kind of like when people when they talk about, oh, once I make that million, I'm gonna be happy. And it's like, nah, man, you got to be happy first. Like you got to find that happiness right now, right here. Otherwise, it's this empty,
Hundred
thing,
percent.
right? That's why when like you hear when people win the lottery and they don't have that discipline, what happens? They just blow it, dude, and they would go back to being broke, you know.
They say it's the same thing with some of the closers in the space, right?
Mm,
You know, they think that once they hit 10K or 20K or 30K, everything's gonna change, right? But my friend, if you're not happy, if you're not satisfied with yourself at 5K, 20K is just gonna make it worse, right? Because once you hit 20K, you're gonna realize it's really the people that start to make more money than other people in the space. They realize that there's levels to this game. Oh,
yeah,
freak! They thought they made it. Okay, there are people out here making 500K a month, not
yeah,
closers, but in general,
yeah.
right? And then you're just gonna end up going through these times of emptiness because you were chasing money when, regardless, when in the you were chasing money, but the very thing that you were chasing is now causing you to be depressed now. You
Mm,
so empty,
mm-hmm.
right? It's kind of a strange turn of events. But yeah, you should be happy. This is what they if every single dollar was taken away from you and you just lived on the street homeless, right? You should be able to live a very fulfilled life still with
Sure,
yourself. You should be, right? And if you're able to do that, then you're going to be fine no matter how much money you make.
right.
But if you need the money, and like I said, not saying that none of us need money, we all need money. But if you need that 20K a month, that 30K a month for you to feel impressed with yourself or feel happy with yourself, good luck, man. Good
One's
luck.
off to a bad start if that's the case, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And you
yeah.
and I have seen this happen to too many people. So
Oh yeah, it's and that's what I find so fascinating about the sales game, dude. Like you mentioned that there's levels to, and there are levels to this game, and there are also levels to personal development. Um, we were talking about that earlier, right? When we first got on the Zoom before the record button, and just the different aspects of personal development. And I want to excuse me. I want to ask you a question. So this is the holy month of Ramadan, right?
yeah.
That we're in. Um, can you enlighten me on what that is about? As far as I know, Muslims they fast essentially from sun up to sundown, correct?
Correct.
And it's
Correct.
and it's what is it about? Is it like a month of atonement, or how's that?
No, so Ramadan. So what it is essentially is it is a month of growing closer to Allah, right? It's
Mm,
a lot of it's a month of because Allah created human beings very weak. We're very weak. Like we get thirsty. We starve. We need intimacy. We need affection from people close to us. We need all this stuff, right? But sometimes it's these very things that cut us off from our Lord,
mm,
right? So Ramadan is a time for us to cut away all those pleasures from sunrise to sunset. So you can, for example, a man and woman, so you can't have sex, you can't drink, you can't any water, not even water. You can't have any food. You can't do anything that might. So you can't basically you can't do anything. So obviously there's no intimacy, and you can't do anything that might lead to intimacy. Right. The whole point is to abstain yourself and to take that energy into focusing on more so learning your religion, seeking for forgiveness, like reading the Quran, applying the aspects of the religion much more than you would in the other months of the year. Because
Gotcha.
Ramadan is just a month in the Islamic calendar, because the
Yeah.
Islamic calendar is based on the lunar calendar. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. That's cool. Now, here's something I want to revisit that we spoke about earlier, which I think is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're when you were telling me when you were in high school, you weren't as spiritually involved with your religion as you are now, right?
No.
And right. And so it was if I'd like to revisit that part because you said something that was going on, that there was sort of an emptiness in your life with, in high school, and then you found this fulfillment. And can you elaborate more on that, please?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, because in high school, it's all about you want to impress everybody. Let's be honest, man. You want to impress everybody. You want to be the. I was pretty popular in high school. I would say out of my class, I was definitely in top five most popular people. I mean, it's sad that I even like thought of that as an achievement back in the day. Now these people don't barely know me, but even through that, like it was just I can't describe it. There was just emptiness. I knew that I was meant for something more, right? I wasn't fulfilling my purpose, and I wasn't, as a religious then either. And even it's really like I started to think about it after high school as well, because even the people that I thought, okay, maybe they're just having their good time. Like, look at me, like I'm just like I'm kind of like restricted from all these quote unquote worldly pleasures, and these people are out here having a blast. But then like I'm hearing stories like these, like for example, like a lot of dudes, a lot of girls that I know that they're just depressed. Some of them are on pills.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like depression. I mean that's also a huge problem here in America. Like they don't know what to do with their life. They feel lost. They're stuck in their room, like grabbing their hair, like thinking like, what am I doing with my life? I'm just like, oh frick, like they're missing something, right? And I believe that thing that people are missing, I believe that is Islam. I believe that is the true religion. And for me, this is being a Muslim, because I believe that the only thing that can fill a person's heart is their creator, right? Because there's a verse in the Quran where it says that whoever turns away from Allah, then he will give him a depressed life, right? And for me, when I read that verse, that was very powerful for me, and ever since I never gotten a hint of depression. Even when I went through, I mean, I'm still young. There's gonna be times where I'm gonna go through much worse times, but even like when I went through like quote unquote tough times, I didn't feel that hint of depression, because it goes back to the preordination, right?
Hmm.
This was supposed to happen, right? Or this is a punishment for my past sins.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes. I don't know. I might have went on a tangent there,
No,
but
you're
I
good.
just said what was in my heart, my man.
No, you're
Yeah,
good. You're good. You're good, man. And I appreciate that.
yeah.
And so the other day, you you put up this other interesting post, right? And you talked about the future life that you want to create. And I remember like you put a number to it, like this is how much you need to make in order to sustain this life that you want in the future, right?
100%.
Right. And I think it was you needed to make 10 million, because I think part of it too was how many wives did you want to have? You just said you say 10 or 20. I think if it was 10, then I was going like, oh, okay, yeah, it's about a million per wife. So it makes sense, dude. Like, yeah.
So it's Islam it limits it to four wives. However, you can have unlimited concubines, but we don't live in a time where concubines are a problem. You know what I'm trying to say? There's not
Got,
really a lot of wars right
gotcha.
now.
so so then so then here's the thing, man, because I have tough enough time with one right now. How Like, how would you manage four, man? Like, would one of the wives be wife number one and she's
I'll
the
tell you.
manager? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll tell you when I get there, my man. I'll
Okay, all
tell you.
right, cool, cool.
It's funny that you bring this up, because I honestly, because I'm trying to figure out as well, because most of the Muslim, we call them, so in English they call them the caliphs, in Arabic we call them the khalifas. They're very the rulers of the Muslims of the
Mm,
past, right?
yeah,
They all had concubines.
yeah.
Like there was like, I think like at one point, like this one dude, like he had like, I think he had like three wives and he had like over like 200 something concubines, something crazy. You know what I mean? And like it wasn't a hard time for him. I think just because men were different back then, dude. They're different.
It's
You
a
know what
different.
I
It's
mean?
a different. If it's a different time, it's a
They're a
way.
different breed.
It's a
They weren't
different.
they weren't
Yeah,
they weren't quote unquote soft.
yeah.
You
It
know?
was. It was. It was a different time. I mean, like, just think about all the, all the, just the historical figures of the days of yore, right? And just how business was handled back in the day, as opposed to how business is handled now, right? Um, yeah, it's excuse me, it's the whole idea, like, and so, and what's interesting is that there's a lot of, like say for example, Mormonism in this country also allows for multiple wives as well,
Yeah.
right? And
I don't think they have a limit though.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'll
Yeah.
have to ask. I'll have to ask one of the homies who's a Mormon and be like, "So, do you guys? What's going on? Do you guys have a limit?" And here's the interesting thing too, with a lot of, a lot of religions, and it just, and it doesn't have to be necessarily religions, but there's always different degrees and aspects, right? And so, as far as I know, there's, the different sects in Islam, which you have Sunni and uh, help me out with this one so I don't butcher it.
There's many sects. And the
There's
prophet,
many.
yeah, the prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he says, this nation will divide into 73 sects, right? 73 sects, and it's more even Sunni. Within Sunni, there's like, because Sunni is just a general term, right? Within Sunni, there's many sects. Within Shia, there's many sects, right? There are sects of Muslims. There are sects. I mean, there's a lot of sects basically. That would get into a whole different conversation about the sects of Islam. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of sects. Yeah, but
Wow.
you were saying though.
Wow. So then that's so very.
For example, yeah, just to give you an idea, like there are sects in Islam that reject the idea of preordination.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They reject it
Yeah. Well.
because they say, right, if everything is, how can we have free? Because they said, how can we have? By the way, the people that say that, we don't consider them Muslims,
Mm,
because that's one of the main pillars of faith is to believe in the qadar, right, the preordination, right.
ah.
You know what I mean? So they
Yeah.
just threw that away. And the reason for this, for them not rejecting qadar, was actually the spread of Greek philosophy into the Muslim world. It's a
Oh,
history lesson as well, right?
interesting.
What happened was after the books of Aristotle and Plato and I don't know if it was Socrates, but many other Greek philosophers, they were translated into Arabic.
Uh huh.
And people that didn't have a grounding in their religion, they were affected by this for sure. And it's mainly people that came from, like, for example, right? The Muslims took over, they took over Rome, they took over Persia, right? A lot of these ideas came out of the Persian people that converted to Islam because they still had what's the word? Because Persia was also affected by Hellenism,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
These people, they still had like, what's the word? I'm trying to find like little bits and pieces of Hellenistic values within them, even though they did become Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
But by reading the books of Aristotle and Plato, it just kind of amplified it,
Sure.
right? So we're like, okay, how can we say that, Allah knows exactly what's going to happen when we have free will? That's what they say. I'm
Mm.
sure you've heard that all the time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? That's just one of their arguments. I'm not here to refute their arguments now, but many sects, in regards to that, some sects reject the idea of. I'm trying to think. I think a good one to think of. Some things like they actually reject the idea of free will, right? So
Oh,
so one believes in free will but rejects the preordination. But some reject the idea of free will itself
sure.
but they believe in the ordination. It's like the complete opposite.
Right.
You're not the complete opposite. And it's funny because one time, one of the companions of the Prophet, sorry, so his name was Umar, right? And a kid came to him because this is going to be a little bit. Basically, there's a very severe punishment in Islam for stealing, especially
Mm.
something valuable to people, right? Very strict punishment. I'll just say it, man. They cut off your hand.
Oh yeah, no, me, please say it. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They cut off your hand pretty
yeah.
much. And there was a young man that stole, and he was taken to Umar, the ruler of the Muslims at that time. And he said, "Oh, Umar, how are you gonna punish me when Allah willed that I was gonna steal?" Right?
Ah,
Right?
ah.
But then what did Umar say? Right? Then how can you get mad at me when Allah willed that I'm gonna cut your hand?
Oh.
Oh, right? And the kid was just like, long story short, he got his hand cut
Yeah.
off.
Oh man, that's hilarious. That's a good story. That's good, man.
Yeah.
It's this whole it's been, this whole idea of, God and free will, and in philosophy they call it a deterministic universe, meaning
Mhm.
that it's, there's one side of it that says if reality is governed by the laws of physics, right? That, things work a certain way, then we kind of live in a certain, like, everything's already predetermined, right? It's just going to work out that way. And I find over time, in studies of different religions and different philosophies, I think in Christianity, I think there's a similar, argument happening as well.
Mhm.
Um, if I'm not mistaken, I think Judaism as well. And the in Islam, they recognize all the past prophets, right? I mean, going back to all of them, right?
Yep.
And we're going, like, us, where does this? I mean, from Abraham to David,
From Adam
from Adam
all the way to
right,
Prophet Muhammad.
all the way. Is there, what I'm curious about? Is there, as far as like a modern day like Sufism, right? For
Mm-hmm.
example, and then that's like the more mystical side of Islam.
Yeah. So remember how I told you there's 73 sects.
Yeah.
It's going to be 73 sects, and only one of them, all of them. So from the Muslim perspective, right? I'm always going to be speaking from the Muslim perspective, just for the
Yes.
audiences, just in case they get confused. All of them are in the hellfire except for one sect, right? And what is that one sect? Is the sect that stuck to the teachings of, well, the teachings of the time of the Prophet and his companions. Exactly that, because we
Mhm.
believe that is the height of rationality. That is the height
Ah,
of morality, right?
yeah.
Nothing changes after that, right? So we believe Sufis they're heretics.
Oh wow. Okay.
They were one of the groups affected deeply by Greek philosophy. They're not just Greek philosophy. There are many other things. I mean, some Sufis believe that if you try hard enough, you can get to a level of prophethood. Yeah, I'm trying to
Mm.
say, if you try to stay as disconnected as much as possible to the world, you can become a prophet. And also their idea of abstinence in the world is very extreme, and I'll tell you what I mean by this. Because to them, because we have a concept called abstinence, right? In Islam, it's called zuhud in Arabic. And what that means is being disconnected to the world,
Mhm.
right? Don't have an emotional connection, like a strong emotional connection, like you feel like you need this world because this world is temporary.
Mhm.
What the Sufis do is they take it really far to the point where, you know, they wear, they'll wear like very, very simple, like sometimes dirty clothes. They might go out in nature and just stay there in nature just by themselves for like weeks and months. You know what I mean? Just staying disconnected as much from society, saying money is evil, too much money is bad, that type of stuff,
Mhm.
right? In Islam, but we don't have that though, like the true side, like true Islam, right? It's essentially as money's not evil, for example. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad,
Right.
right? Now, how you use it, the idea is you can have a love for money, don't have a love to the point where it controls you. Be disconnected to it,
Yeah.
right? Be the person what's like you spend it, you just don't care,
Right.
right? So it's like be the person that you give, so for example, if you have a lot of money, you can give a lot of charity with that, right? You can give so much charity that you don't even know how much you gave out, right?
Right.
That's abstinence, right? You can wear nice clothes, right? Beautiful clothes. You can wear the most expensive clothes, but don't have that worldly connection to it. Be
Mm.
disconnected from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
That makes any sense.
It
Yeah.
makes a ton of sense. It reminds me of the Buddhist concept of non-attachment or detachment, right?
Hmm.
Where where it's like, in Buddhism, they say the cause of suffering is desire, and that desire causes attachment to the world, right? I
Hmm.
mean, things are temporary, things are fleeting, and so don't be so taking it back to detaching from the sale, taking it back from just
I agree.
detaching overall, right? Even Jocko Willenick, I have it here on my wall, where he says one of the most powerful things you can do as a human being is learn to detach from your ego, detach from your emotions, detach from your perspective, detach from yourself. To be better and do better, detach.
100%. I agree with that
Right?
100%. I'm gonna say, even as a Muslim, I'm gonna add something onto that.
Sure.
It's detaching yourself to the point. It's so for the Muslim, it's taking the rulings of the Quran and don't be affected by it. Because for example, in the Quran, Allah says that there's some things in here like that you might, and that's something not that you're gonna hate. Well, Allah sent down, but it's basically that there are some things you might do that you hate, but it's good for you.
Mm.
But there are some things that you think that you really want to do, but it's bad for you.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
They think about it like, if we only just focus on our desires, did what we felt like doing,
Ooh,
it's like
that's a road.
that's a
That's a
recipe
road.
for disaster. You and I know this.
Oh
We
man,
experience.
that's just the pleasure seeking life is or the road to hell, and I lived that for too long, right? And okay, so the concept
Oh,
of the harem, right? From what I
the
read
what?
about the harem, harem, right?
Harim? The
For,
Harim. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so what I read about it was this: is that originally it was set up by the Sultan, and he was like, hey, no, 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 look, my fellow family member, male family members who want to usurp me. It's like, listen, I'm gonna set you up with all the ladies, right? And you guys just chill, right? Have a good time and just let me run things. And so now these dudes are in there at this pleasure palace and they're just like, yeah, you got it. And now,
Funny. Do you mind if I actually
please,
interject on that? So
please.
look, so that word harim, that word, that's actually been perverted by the Orientalist. Believe it or not.
Oh, dude. Okay. All right. All right. All right.
Yeah, you want to hear this? Yeah.
Yes.
So the harim. So what that actually means. So I believe it originated in the times of the Ottomans, but that word generally means it's basically a secluded area for the female family members of the Sultan, so that they're away from the public.
Oh, damn.
You see?
That's a bastardization of the word.
Yeah, I'm trying to say.
Oh,
However, over time, not to say that they didn't have harems. You
right.
know what I mean?
Right.
I'm sure they did, right? As many powerful men do,
Yes.
right? Yeah. But that word has been perverted over time. I don't believe it was just all at once, but it was over time to the point where, I mean, because even like when you look at a lot of Orientalist art, you'll see even like a lot of perversions and stuff. You'll see like sultans, like very powerful men, and then a bunch of like young boys, like naked, like in the middle, like doing some dance. Like
Yeah.
that's not, you know what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. But like, yeah, I just thought I would educate you on that, man.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
I thought you find that interesting.
No, definitely, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that the original use of the word was good. Okay, then that makes a lot of
But they
sense.
did exist. But your point though, keep going,
But
because
the
you're saying
point,
that.
yeah, the thing was this: it basically create a pleasure palace. So whoever was going to be a threat to your throne, like your brother or a cousin or something like that, you can just occupy them for by them hanging out at the fucking.
And for men, there's no bigger sedation than women.
Oh,
That's how I mean that's how the porn industry, and that's another conversation, right? I mean that's why they spend so much money on the porn industry. So much money goes into
no.
the porn industry, and
Ooh.
it's I do believe it's a very satanic industry, and it's there to sedate boys and keep them from unlocking their true potential.
Oh,
So,
it's brutal.
you know,
It's brutal. It's once again going back to what we were talking about as far as freedom, right? And having this, hey, here you go. How are you going to use this tool? And there's this, we were talking about, is like raising children and disciplining children, right? Not taking things personally, and having the focus when it comes to learning how to use a tool. But man, the temptation that is there at your fingertips.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The temptation that's there on your face, like that's in it's different than back then. Because back then, if you wanted a woman to sleep with, right, or not even sleep with, I mean, just to look at a naked woman, you had to go out and conquer the next village.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
hmm.
There was even like, I mean, I don't. There was a sense, even for that type of behavior, there was a sense of delayed gratification because you
Right.
had to earn it, quote unquote, right?
Yeah,
You had to earn it, quote
you had to
unquote.
go to war to earn it. Yeah.
Hey, hey, hey! I'll say it, man. Minds you and I would not exist today. Let's be honest.
Oh, no, no. I think not just you and I, but
Yeah,
if we go, I mean, if we look at history and just see how things like things are not like how they are these days, where it's just like,
yeah,
cool, boy meets girl, they fall in love, and it's just like, no, it was a lot different back then.
yeah.
It was
It was a
like,
lot different.
no, I want her, I'm going to take her. And it was like, yeah, I mean, that's what happened to my grandma in Mexico. That shit was going down, 2 generations ago, where,
Right.
my grandfather, who was this bastard, was just like, I'm taking her, and straight up kidnaps her from the family. Like, that's how shit went down, man. And it
I
still
don't know how I
does.
feel about that, but it's just how it is. Yeah,
It's
man.
just how it
It's just
is.
how it is. We're very fortunate. I was saying that back then there was a sense of delayed gratification, though,
Yeah.
Marco. Like, and then the time between, and then it started becoming less and less delayed. So like, let's just say like in the '60s, men had magazines now.
Hmm.
They had to sneak it in, they had to sneak the magazine, they had to go hide it. You know what I mean? That did it. There's a sense of being sneaky, right? And then you had CDs, right? That's even CDs you can only get in certain places. So there was still some sense of delayed gratification, but it was getting less and less with time. Now all I have to do is search up any keywords. That's it. I got it.
Yeah.
That's what destroys. That's what really destroys. I mean, I believe there's two things going on, right? It's the the lack of the delay,
Hmm.
right? And it's also the being overcome, letting the temptations like overcome your brain. I mean, I've literally seen dudes like I've seen dudes like not go to the gym because they need to watch it. They need to
Ooh,
watch porn.
that's that.
I've seen
So,
dudes they can't do this, but anytime hard times happen to them, they don't get things don't go their way, they resort to porn.
and
I mean that's
and that's now we're talking about addiction.
yep,
Right. Now we're talking about straight up addiction, because, what are we talking about? We are talking about something that is giving me that cheap dopamine, right?
yep,
We're talking about something that, excuse me, that is like, it's straight up drug, it's going right in, and I'm like,
yep.
it's making everything get all, and I'm feeling good and okay in that moment. And yeah, now I got that gratification, and boom, and boom, now
Crash.
crash, right?
Because
And it,
your brain is not designed to take that much dopamine at once.
nah, they're not even. and and
Not at
and
all.
and it's it's what's fucked up is that, part of my French is that it's not just, we're talking video games, we're talking sodas, sugary foods, fast food. It's the life of convenience, like the saying goes, right? It goes, weak times create hard men create good times create weak men create weak times or hard
Hard
times,
times.
right?
Yeah.
And that cycle is it is a
That
fact
is
that
the natural so in Islam we call it that's the fitrah of Allah.
it,
That's the natural way of Allah. Right? That's
ah,
that's what happens
yeah,
every time, right?
yeah,
Like think about for example, the Muslims that took over because the Muslims they were very small. They were just a bunch of goat herders back in the day.
right,
Right? Bunch of let's just be honest, right? Just in the middle desert. They had nothing, right? But they were still able to take out the two largest empires at the time by themselves, the Romans and the Persians.
yeah,
Why? Despite the Persians, the Romans, they had all the best weaponry, they had numbers and all that. But why was that, right? because they were living. They were in the good time stage.
Yep. Yeah. Because of
Good.
the
They're in the good
decadence.
times create weak men.
Yeah.
The Muslims were in the hard times. They're in the stage of hard times create strong men.
Right.
And when those two civilizations collide, you know what happens most of the time.
Oh, dude.
You know, boom.
Yeah. Boom. It's story as old as
And that,
time.
and that also happened to the Muslims. I'll be honest, and that
Yeah.
also happened again back to the Muslims. Now the Muslims, I'll be honest, the Muslims, like in terms of like their rank in the world right now. I mean, not counting, you know, the United Arab Emirates, where Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia, not counting, but the rest of the Middle East. I mean, it's very low in the economic standing compared to the other countries, right? We got weak and the West got strong. Boom, flip. And I do believe at some point, I do believe it will happen in this century. There's going to be a huge flip. I don't believe Western civilization is going to be at the top
Oh no,
for
there's
too
there's
long. It's just here. When you see who's the future of this country, the future of the country walking down the street, you just look at them like, you guys are screwed, man. You're screwed. You know what I mean?
it's
Not to say America is still the strongest country in the world,
yeah,
without a doubt.
yeah.
However, however, I think it's going to destroy itself.
If
Not an outside enemy. But go ahead.
yeah, oh yeah, no, it's always it's yeah, I think that if we keep going the route that we keep going, and I think it's that there's just pendulums are always swinging left, they're always swinging right, right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always there's, and it's just so funny how humans are, man. Just human nature, just extremes of one thing and extremes to another. And you know, it just, for example, there was this funny commercial that they did, a recruitment commercial for the army, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a side by side comparison between a Russian recruitment army video and a U.S. Army recruitment video. And the Russian one they show, it was like this action movie where these dudes wake up and they're all buff and they're training in the snow, and they show them doing cool shit, jumping out of the airplane. And you're just like, yeah, that's cool. And then the American one was like this cartoon of this chick. She's like, "Hi, my name is Sammy, and I'm from Santa Barbara. And yeah, those are my two moms. And I can't wait to serve my country." And I'm just like, dude, what? Just based off of those two
Tell me
commercials.
that was not hilarious though.
Oh, it was so funny. It was hilarious. Of course, it was hilarious. It was super funny, right? It was cracking me up.
I showed my parents that. They were dying,
Oh,
dude.
dude,
They were dying.
it was super
Well, I
funny.
guess there was obviously that was not. I don't believe that was obviously a Russian commercial, right? That was obviously a Russian commercial. But like, regardless, man, like it's. I mean, how far is that from reality, though?
It's not, and it's
That
not. And,
commercial. Obviously, we're laughing and all, but like, all jokes aside,
yeah,
that's not very far from the reality.
it's not. And I think this is one thing, and I think you know, I am big into masculine studies, right?
Absolutely,
And
yes, sir.
and I also believe that to have the masculine strength, you also have to have, you know, love, compassion, and empathy, right? There has to be, you know,
Absolutely.
there's that symbol in kung fu when you're saluting, right? Where it's like, here I have my fist, this is for action, but at the same time I can temper it, right? And how Jordan Peterson talks about a good man is a dangerous man. And
Without a
people,
doubt.
right, as opposed to like, no, I'm just a nice guy, I'm harmless. And it's like, and I don't trust you,
Right.
right? Because
That's actually the most dangerous man right there.
that's the most dangerous, because that
And
type
you
of
need to
man
be
is
careful from him.
exactly, they
Yeah.
become passive aggressive, they become all kinds of weird shit, right?
Right.
And so I think what we're seeing, right, what we're seeing with a lot of things is that, and here's the thing, man, there is a reason why um the Spartans, for example, were the way they were when they were like, I'm going to take the boy once he hits 7, right? And I'm going to train him, right? And not that I'm advocating that type of training for children. I have a son, he's 5. But what I am advocating is this, and this is something I think it's important, regardless of one's spiritual traditions. I think being a strong masculine male is important. And I think part of that comes with like, got to work out, right? You got to have some type of routine. You got to have some type of discipline, and and you got to be an example. And there is a lot of weakness in society because of the lack of discipline in the freedom.
Right.
because it's like if it's kind of like creating something, like when you try to create art without boundaries, you don't create anything, because you just like, oh, and you just like shit on the canvas. As opposed to, like, if you give yourself a boundary or something to work with, you can get really creative and create something beautiful. And in this case, that work of art is a strong man. I can only speak about us as men. I can only speak about men. I cannot speak for women or the feminine side. And, but all due respect to them, because they are the mothers of humanity.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
They're
I,
they're 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 a very crucial part, without a doubt.
without a
Yeah.
doubt, and also recognizing that those of us who essentially, because really at the base level, man, what's a man's role? To protect to protect the tribe, to protect the family, and to keep the tribe going by basically impregnating his mates, his partner, his
Yep.
wife, right? and
And then guiding.
and guiding. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and so really those are the roles that you have. And when we start getting away from that, the things that have created strong societies start crumbling.
Absolutely, man. And the only reason that countries like America, they're only able to stand this long without this kind of order, like in like in the households, because the masculine feminine order, it's like the natural way, I call it, right? It's
Sure.
been lost in the West, right?
Yeah.
We don't see that as much. Let's say it doesn't exist. We don't see it as much in the households. And the only reason that I believe that countries like this one are still able to stand long even after we see this disorder, we see like the result of this disorder in the gender roles. It's just living off of its past achievements, but at some point it's going to crumble itself, not by outside entity, but itself. you know and it's sad to see, man, because like you said, like back in the day, boys, they who did they learn from? Boys learn from men. Girls, they learned how to be a woman from women, right? But think about who's teaching our boys from very young age.
Right.
Just women. They don't know what it's like to be a man. They don't know
No.
what it's like
No.
to,
Yeah.
for a boy when he's going through puberty, that what's it like to have urges, what's it like to control himself. Only a man can teach him that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
We've already gone over to 35. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, no, this has been
Yes.
great, dude. It goes
Yes.
by fast, huh?
I'm really enjoying the conversation. I didn't even think it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No, it's all good, brother. I want to wrap it up here.
yep.
And it's been a lovely conversation. Thank you, first off.
Absolutely, man.
And I
Appreciate you
really,
for having me.
yeah, man, yeah, yeah, definitely. We're gonna have you on board again. Um, and the thing is, ultimately, like, I'm always, I'm a firm believer that things can be redeemed, that people can be redeemed. Like, I don't think it's ever too late to change. And what I mean by that is this: I think that,
I would say one thing. It
sure.
is too late. Once you die, it's too late.
Oh yeah,
Other
yeah,
than
yeah.
that,
No, oh yeah,
if
yeah.
you haven't died yet, you're still good, man.
Well, yeah, totally, dude. Like, once you're dead, it's like, hey, dude, all right. Hey, well, real quick, let's end it on this one trippy thing. Speaking of death and all that, so like, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence? I want to end it on that.
I have no problem. I'm pretty neutral on it. Although I do believe it has a lot more in the future. I do believe it's going to cause a lot more harm to human beings
Mm,
than positive. No, without a doubt, there is positives to it. I mean,
right.
think about it. I'm able to get. If I was a copywriter, I'm able to get so many ideas from Chat GPT, for example. It's an amazing thing. But what's going to happen is people knowledge is going to leave human beings, and people are only going to rely on AI. But how do we know that AI is giving out the right information?
Mm, mm-hmm,
You know what I mean? How
mm-hmm.
can we rely on that? Right? Because what's going to happen is people are going to be, instead of being dependent on their memories, because people really underestimate the brain, man, how much we're able to memorize stuff,
Sure.
right? And once that goes away, and like our ability to kind of like, what's the word? Our ability to differentiate between the truth and the falsehood, right? Of like what's being said, then it's like we're just gonna end up being controlled by any narrative we want if we become too dependent of it. However, I also see AI. I also see AI causing more human interaction.
Oh, really? How so?
The opposite, because what's going to happen is people are going to start losing trust in AI, and they're going to start to want to have real life. The only way to verify
Mm,
something is through
mm,
real life experience.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's yeah, it's kind of like when people are like, can you get me a person? 000. Just like, calling customer service. I don't want to talk to the machine. Give me a person.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool.
100%.
Awesome, man.
What,
Awesome.
what are your thoughts, just real quick to finish it off?
Oh man. Whew. I I I think what we're doing. So I'm one of my favorite philosophers is Alan Watts. I don't know if
Hmm?
you're
I'm
familiar with
familiar
him.
with Alan
Yep.
Watts. Yeah.
He's one of my favorite philosophers, and he talks about he has this concept where he says humanity is a symptom of nature, right? That we grew out of nature, right? And and I take it all along a further line that all our inventions, everything that we've created, are an extension of ourselves, right? They're a symptom of ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
if we are a symptom of nature, the things that we create are also a symptom of nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are creating these things in our image. In some sense, we are playing. In some sense, we're playing God, right? And and so if you look at the type of robots that Boston Dynamics is building, or the Tesla bot, right?
Yeah.
Which I think it's going to help out a lot in life. Like, for example, with healthcare, families with older disabled people, right? I think
100%.
I think they'll be able to design compassionate AIs in those robots because if you think about it, as humans, we have emotions and they're very difficult to control and we get upset with people and stuff like that, especially with like an Alzheimer family member or whatever, right? These robots aren't going to get pissed off at you. They're always going to maintain. And at some point, I think that what we are creating is going to be a separate form of life. And going back to this preordination of things where it's like if we weren't meant to, we wouldn't be able to, but yet we are going to this direction. And I almost there's this weird thought about that I have about this where it's like when you have a child, for the most part, most parents want the best for the child. They want that child to be better than what they were. They want, it's like all the things that I am not proud of. I don't want you to be. I want you to be this great man or great woman. And I think maybe there's this approach towards the AI. I'm not 100% sure on it, but a lot of people think, oh, it's going to be created and it's going to destroy us. And then I have to stop and think, well, we're thinking about it the way we think, how we're fallible, how we make mistakes, how we have sin, how we have whatever you want to call it, right? We're thinking about it in the way that we think. People are afraid that this thing is going to become smarter than us and all this than us and this and that it's going to destroy us. But then I think, but what if that's not the case? What if it becomes so, for lack of a better term, enlightened? And it goes, huh, so this is what it's like. How can I help you guys? Because right now Earth is messed up, you know, and, and so at least I think it becomes one of those things like, what if that is the case? Like the highest form of intelligence, the highest form of intelligence is ultimate compassion and empathy. What if that's the case? And what if that's what happens to the AI? And then what? Right. And now imagine if that's something that gets into the robots and now you have something that is there to help you and you're just kind of like interesting, and not this thing that wants to destroy you because it goes, well, why do I want to do that? That's just wrong.
Right.
And so that's where I like to take my mind to, because the other places, all the Terminator movies, yeah,
Yeah.
all the Matrix movies,
Right.
right? And that reality has already been played out in our minds over and over and over again. And I like to think, well, what if the other side plays out? Like, what if because we're so used to, the doom and the gloom and all that. And I just go, and this even goes from like a personal development mindset, right? Where it's like, what if I think out the best scenario for it? And what if that's what I want to manifest and bring into this reality and tune into, as opposed to the fear? If that makes sense. That's kind of where my
Sure.
mind goes. Yeah.
Well, we just have to figure out, right?
All right, man. Let's wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another awesome episode lucky number 13, with my friend Mohammed Nasser. Where can people find you, buddy?
You can find me on Facebook. You guys know if you're watching this, you're probably most likely a closer. You'll probably find me on Facebook.
Yeah.
You can find me on IG. I mean, he can put my stuff in the description if possible, and yeah, just take it from there, guys.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, folks, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe button where it's at. Tell your mom, to your grandma, she's going to love this show. And that has been a wrap, folks. Thank you so much.